and both of us were different people. Orpheus. The epigraph is from Robert Duncan. Lovers die, love remains. You will surely have read the book when you come. It is sold in green, mauve, and black cloth bound covers at discerning bookstores in my city and yours. I like the black and gold cover like a coffin best. And then you'll ask for a new house. Settle down on the couch like the householder you are, lover no more. And then you'll bring me all those memories of my old days, my graduation photograph and yours, with the nuclear reactor at your back, with no memory of a war, a youthful close up of yours, mole and all, looking like Dave Anand, and of our old bungalow with the bougainvillea terrace growing thick. There will be others to cope with. You'll bring them too with you. That woman who warms your bed, the daughter who keeps you young, the sailor's son who probably looks like you, and I, without a progress report, feel already like the war dead. Then you'll proceed to strip me bare to the bone, just as I have described you doing in the book, and see the pages come to life. My schoolboy haircut, the soft hair falling over the left eye, catching light, my slender body parting the tousled bed sheets as if at sea, and you a rudder to my drowning boat. Of course, you'll see yourself in my book, the heavy torso, the light limbs, softly shuffling feet like a reluctant speech, and then suddenly a torrent of embraces. Is there no love short of eating, of stopping breath? I had to get rid of all that. I went to 100 ports, to 100 sailors to drown me with their kisses. But you are resurrected today in my pages and on my couch. I had to cope with all that. I became ugly, hairy, old, and fat. I sit on my new doorstep, which everyone avoids. And now you sit there at my old ruined house, shuffling the fallen mauve bougainvillea petals with your soft feet. The trellis vine has grown into a tree with leaves, a book. Lovers still embrace in its shade. This gift you gave me is for Orpheus, and I sit under it, singing of you. This was before all those apps came in for gays to meet each other. We used to meet in Bombay on the suburban trains. A lost poem retrieved, or an attempt to rewrite a poem after 40 years. 8:20, the suburban fast fits men on men. The train lurches through its halls, spewing out lonely men onto the last stage. Some reach undreamt destinations as they clasp each other's hands, hoping it'll last. Some end up on beaches, lonely or populated, where they feast upon each other's meat. The sea imitates the piston motion of engines. Clatter, clatter goes the love machine as a satisfied audience on shore claps to see the scene. Some elicit poems, some tears, some secret scripts, some public prayers, some perfumed fragrances, some deodorants, some seek out an unbuilt flat, some locked out churches. Where in the city is a man to find a peg to hang his hat? Some clench their teeth at coming, some bite the pillow in bed, some scream hysterically to see the sky revolve at an open air initiation, their second coming. Some weep with joy, some sadly cry, some douche immediately, some keep the baby. What's a man to do if he can't find a lady? Lady, oh lady, shine down on me, send me that dream man to keep me company. I have been good, I've kept the faith, trusted only some, not everyone. Said my rosary daily on the 8:20. At the school chapel, I write poetry, where Jesuits thumb the rule book Jesuitically. Sometimes I feel the mother's mantle brush past me as I shut my eyes in love's reverie. Across the years, my lover comes to meet me at platform number 9. He smiles and waits patiently as the whole world passes by. He waits and smiles to see me wait as we stay rooted to that spot, age 60 and 63. This is called a marine conversation. He lived by the sea, we lived on the sea in Bombay at Bandra. From marine conversation, from below the rolling, roiling sea love, let us come up for breath because we were forever immured behind sea walls, confiding each other, confining ourselves from the world. Silence stopped our mouths, we barely breathed, so full of youth were we, like porpoises leaping up for air. We leapt and dived down again to see with sea eyes our young sea love. Neither ebb mattered nor tide as it licked our beds and wafted out to sea were we on our own blood tides. The sun rose and set several rainless months, but deep down under our sea, even suns went unwet. Ours was a frank daylight love, though, formed fully in sunlight. The moon did course through our veins, though as silver fluid, leaving us on the shore as silver filgreed fish. The last poem is called Soul Poem 2. Bronze figures are forged in time's foundry, souls are made in the swale of soul making. We see these bronze bodies through a veil of time now. I do not remember a rain curtain ever on this love of mine. We strode in the full sun, fully innocent, silent. The city stood still for moving lovers a breed apart. Trains brought us to tryst, trains took us away, like parting, colliding railway tracks. Things rot and ripen in the sun. Other times, other climes, other suns come. In between, a veil, we tear time apart. We solder what was sundered, a broken bronze. We forge again a body with broken words, with soul, a soul that stayed so silent so long. Thank you.
थैंक यू सर। अब मैं चित्रा व्यास जी को आमंत्रित करती हूँ। चित्रा व्यास एक सामाजिक कार्यकर्ता हैं जो ट्रांसजेंडर अधिकारों के लिए समर्पित एक एनजीओ के साथ सक्रिय रूप से काम कर रही हैं। उनके पास कंप्यूटर एप्लीकेशन में स्नातक की डिग्री है और वर्तमान में वो डेटा एनालिटिक्स में अध्ययन कर रही हैं। चित्रा जी को ऐसे विषयों पर कविता लिखने का शौक है जिन पर चर्चा करने में कई लोग झिझकते हैं और उन्हें अभिनय का भी शौक है। With significant experience in advocating for third gender rights, Chitra Vyasji has demanded shelter homes for them. Her work includes educating people about transgender community, improving their image, dispelling misconceptions, and conducting fieldwork. Chitra Vyasji.
Hi everybody, I'm Chitra और मैं एक ट्रांस वुमेन हूँ और मैं आपके सामने दो कविताएं पढ़ के सुनाना चाहूंगी जो मैंने खुद लिखी है। मैं खुद लिखती हूँ। तो पहली कविता उस फेज के बारे में है जब मैं खुद से खुद को देख रही थी कि मैं हूँ कौन या मैं कैसा फील करती हूँ। तो थोड़ा सा कविता को साइड रख के मैं कुछ बताना चाहती हूँ कि मुझे नहीं पता चला था कि मैं कौन हूँ। आपके सामने मैं एज ए ट्रांस वुमेन खड़ी हूँ, लेकिन मुझे नहीं पता था। मैं खुद को शायद एक ह्यूमन मानती थी, बट जैसे कि जो समाज वाले थे उन्होंने मुझे बताया कि मैं कौन हूँ। बहुत अच्छे थे। कोई मुझे छक्का बोलता, कोई मीठा, गुड़। मुझे तो लगा था कि मैं एक इंसान हूँ क्योंकि सभी के 2 हाथ, 2 पैर, 1 नाक, आँखों से देखते हैं। मुझे लगा था कि मैं भी वैसी हूँ, बट मुझे समाज वालों ने बताया कि मैं थोड़ी शायद अलग हूँ। फिर मैंने खुद ही को एक्सप्लोर करना चालू किया कि मैं क्या हूँ और खुद को मैंने पाया कि मैं एक स्त्री हूँ। तो पहली कविता मेरी उसी के बारे में है। तो मैं इसका टाइटल है एक सहेली बाग में बैठे-बैठे रो रही। So the poem goes like, एक सहेली बाग में बैठे बैठे रो रही, न नर में हुई न नारी में, फंस गई बीच की मझधारी में, अपनों से ही जिल्लत सहकर खुद को खुद से खो रही, एक सहेली बाग में बैठे बैठे रो रही। माँ ने समाज का डर दिखाया, पिता ने चप्पल जूता उठाया, समाज और घर से मिले अपमान के बोझ को ढो रही, एक सहेली बाग में बैठे बैठे रो रही। हिजड़ा छक्का बोले लोग, लग गया है कोई रोग, अगली सुबह फिर गाली खाने, रात को सिसक कर सो रही, एक सहेली बाग में बैठे बैठे रो रही। किन्नर मांग कर खाएगा, परिवार की इज्जत डुबाएगा। That's how family thinks, right? And that's how you all thinks, right? कि किन्नर मांग कर खाएगा, परिवार की इज्जत डुबाएगा, पर खुद की कमाई रोटी खाने मेहनत के मोती पो रही, एक सहेली बाग में बैठे बैठे रो रही। So that's how my first poem ends. हमारे यहाँ पे एक टैबू है ना कि अगर हम ट्रांस वुमेन है, ट्रांस वुमेन तो पहले अभी अभी चला है, पहले तो हमें सब किन्नर छक्का ही बोलते थे। सो अकॉर्डिंग टू देम कि हम से बधाई वाले उत्सव में जाएंगे, मांगेंगे, खाएंगे, ऐसा नहीं, हम पढ़े लिखे भी हैं, हम पढ़े लिखे भी होते हैं। मैं अभी मास्टर्स की पढ़ाई भी कर रही हूँ, हमें जरूरी नहीं सभी मांग कर खाएगा, तो उसका था। एंड देन माय सेकंड पोएम गोज लाइक, तूने ताली क्यों बजाई। सो ताली से ये अब मैं वो करती हूँ कि ताली मतलब एक्सेप्टेंस, खुद को खुद से खुद का एक्सेप्टेंस। ताली ताली इज लाइक हाउ आई बोल्डली से कि मैं क्या हूँ, मैं कौन हूँ। अगर आप मुझे लड़का नहीं मानते, अगर आप मुझे लड़की नहीं मानते, I'm okay, मैं खुद को स्त्री मानती हूँ, आप जो भी मुझे माने, बट द थिंग इज कि आप मुझे मेरी तरीके से रहने दीजिए। आज ये मैंने साड़ी पहनी है, that's a very big thing for me, मेरा सपना है, और आज वो मैं सपना पूरा कर रही हूँ, एक साड़ी पहन के खड़ी हूँ, सो दैट्स वेरी बिग डील। तो मेरी सेकंड पोएम ही वही है कि तूने ताली क्यों बजाई। सो इट गोज लाइक, मेरे शब्दों को भाषा में लिया ही नहीं, मेरे गीत को संगीत से मिलने दिया ही नहीं, जब मैंने सबसे लड़कर अस्तित्व की लौ जलाई, फिर कहते हो तूने ताली क्यों बजाई। कैसे बजी पहली ताली, कैसे मैंने खुद से खुद की धुन मिला ली, मेरी कही वेदना किसी को समझ नहीं आई, फिर कहते हो तूने ताली क्यों बजाई। ताली इज लाइक रिबेलिंग अगेंस्ट पेरेंट्स, रिबेलिंग अगेंस्ट फैमिली, अपना खुद को स्वीकार करने के लिए रिबेल, वो ताली है। मेरे भीतर घुट रही स्त्री ने पुकारा, माँ को बताया तो उन्होंने नकारा, मैं कौन हूँ यह समझाने पर भी आप समझ नहीं पाई, इसलिए माँ मैंने ताली बजाई। बेल्ट से पीटा, जमीन पर घसीटा, कैसे न दिखा आपको फर्श पर गिरा मेरे लहू का छींटा। मोस्टली हैपेंस, राइट? फादर आपको फिजिकली अब्यूज करते हैं, लाइक सबके केस में होता नहीं होगा, पता नहीं, बट व्हेन यू कम आउट एज एन LGBTQIA+ पर्सन, मेनली फादर बहुत स्ट्रिक्ट होते हैं। तो इट गोज लाइक कि बेल्ट से पीटा, जमीन पर घसीटा, कैसे न दिखा आपको फर्श पर गिरा मेरे लहू का छींटा, मेरे भीतर की देवी पर आपने जूती उठाई। देयर इज अ देवी इनसाइड मी, राइट? मेरे भीतर की देवी पर आपने जूती उठाई, इसीलिए पिताजी मैंने ताली बजाई। देयर इज अ रीजन फॉर एवरीथिंग। स्त्रीत्व के एहसास की, पौरुष के निकास की, आई टुक बर्थ एज अ मेन, राइट? तो उस पौरुष के निकास की, स्त्रीत्व के एहसास की, पौरुष के निकास की, मेरे प्राकृतिक परिवर्तन आप सभी ने उंगली उठाई, इसीलिए समाज वालों मैंने ताली बजाई। एंड द लास्ट स्टेंजा गोज लाइक, क्या है ताली, क्या मैंने ऐसे ही बजा ली, एक हथेली पर शब्द लिख, सुने जाने की आशा से दूसरी हथेली पर दे आई, और ऐसे भाई और बहनों मैंने ताली बजाई। थैंक यू।
Thank you very much. I now invite Shri Dibyajyoti Sharma. Shri Dibyajyoti Sharma has published 3 volumes of poetry, the Book of Prayers for the Non-Believer in 2018, and 4 books of translations and 2 academic books, besides numerous short stories and articles in journals. उनका जन्म असम में हुआ था और अब वे दिल्ली में रहते हैं, जहां वो एक पत्रकार के रूप में काम करते हैं और 2017 में स्थापित स्वतंत्र प्रकाशन रेड रिवर चलाते हैं। रेड रिवर आज अंग्रेजी और अंग्रेजी अनुवाद में कविता के प्रमुख स्वतंत्र प्रकाशकों में से एक के रूप में जाना जाता है। श्री दिव्यज्योति शर्मा।
Hello. I thought I will try something which I have not done before. I'll try to read a poem in Hindi, which was translated by one of my friends. Please excuse my Hindi pronunciation because I'm from Assam. My pronunciation is anyway. So it's called अपने प्रेमी के शादी के कार्ड को लेकर। अपने प्रेमी के शादी के कार्ड को लेकर कार्ड को रोल करे, उसे कहे डाल लो इसे अपने। कार्ड को मोड़ मरोड़ कर बनाइए एक ओरिगामी नाव या कोई हवाई जहाज और उसे कहे कि उड़ा ले जा। कार्ड में छपे दूसरे नाम को खरोच दे और अपनी नाम लिखकर सुनिए कैसे खनकते थे वो बेहतर। अपने बहुत नजदीक लाकर किसी नदी की तरह रोए और जैसे ही कार्ड पर सारे निशान धुंधले होकर एक कोरा नारंगी कागज बन जाए, आप उस पर लिख दे कुछ भी, कैसे आप दोनों साथ में थे सबसे खूबसूरत। बहरहाल ये नहीं है उस जिंदगी की याद, बहरहाल ये नहीं है तो उस जिंदगी की याद ही सही। कार्ड को जला दे और उसकी राख छितरा दे अपनी रसोई की खिड़की से, या फिर महफूज रखे तांबे के उस कलश में जो उन्होंने आपको भेज दिया था आपके जन्मदिन पर। आप इस ओके सॉरी आई लॉस्ट द ट्रैक। आप कार्ड को अपनी किताबों के बीच बुकमार्क की तरह भी रख सकते हैं, और अगर आप एक जज्बाती बेवकूफ है तो उसे दूसरी तरफ उसकी दूसरी तरफ कार्ड के पीछे आप अपनी आत्महत्या का एक नोट लिख सकते हैं। आखिरी हंसी आपकी होगी लेकिन आप नहीं रहोगे। दरअसल आप खुश होकर कहेंगे चलो छुटकारा मिला, और नए सिरे से आगे बढ़ जाएंगे। या फिर आप शादी में शामिल हो सकते हो। दावत अच्छी होगी, और ये जानते हुए कि इतने चोट खाने के बाद भला आप कितना ही और सहेंगे। आप कभी भी बंद कर सकते हैं सोचना उसके बारे में। My apologies for the bad Hindi. Now I'll try to read something in bad English. I'll try to read a couple of small poems. Let's see how it goes. Making love is like enjoying a magic trick. Making love is like enjoying a magic trick. You are awestruck until you learn how the magician conjured a rabbit, or how a silver spoon up his sleeves, and you know it is not what you expected when you first saw him under the soft light in a green sweater. You close your eyes and imagine the body. You did not envision the mole on his chest, the cut marks on his back, and how his thighs are so small. Making love is like enjoying a magic trick. You know it's just a trick and you believe it. You close your eyes and imagine that perfect body, that perfect kiss, that passion. And when it's done, you applaud the magician. Making love is like enjoying a magic trick. You make love to yourself. Okay. So these are some love poems that I wrote a long time back. So I'm just reading them. They don't have titles. I'm just reading one after another. The boy you fancy chatter about his girlfriend. The boy you fancy chatter about his girlfriend, his pride and your envy, how he kissed her. You want to kiss him. You sit facing him, desire filling your heart. He pats your knees lovingly. He wants to borrow your camera to click his girlfriend with. You want him to click you, but say anything for you. Now you are worried about your camera. Okay, next one. I die the day I love someone and I do not have anything to offer. Empty is my pocket's desire to keep a photograph also. I do not have a wallet. Love is when you have offered the world to your beloved and you want to give some more. Okay. I'm going quickly. I have some time, no? 2 minutes. Okay, the next one. My favorite poet once wrote, I am saddened by the sight of the melting candles. Let's go and sit in the darkness. Let's go and sit in the dark instead. We wrapped darkness around us. I did not know he was afraid of darkness. I cut my blackened heart and gave it to him. I did not know he was allergic to blackened hearts. I'm sorry, these are all like, very sad love poems, but I cannot be helped. Okay, last one. The evening, like a bat waiting for its prey, hangs above the neon sign of the barista coffee shop. He is coming this way. The bright, expensive cars like hyacinth on the current of a flooded river zooms past. He hasn't arrived yet. He'll come. He won't. The skeleton hand of the beggar woman on the brightness of your sleeves. Her boy is hungry. No change? Perhaps a coffee? What's the time anyway? Time, like a mosquito overhead, whispers, he'll come. Riding the dazzle of the night, traffic lights, he'll come. He won't. He will. If he were here or someone else, anyone, and hold your hands, touch the skin, still alive, and say, oh, what strife, what pain. And here you are the end of my strife, my pain. He won't come. He will. Thank you. I'll just read the last one. Sorry. Uh, I'm blind for a while now. In short, I'm blind. I have removed my eyeballs and hung them on the gate. He will walk away, he will walk by this way, dazzling my sight. He will walk by this way, dazzling by my side. Carrying a star's torchlight, he will walk by. In short, I'm blind. Thank you so much.
थैंक यू वेरी मच। अब मैं श्रीमती जमीला निशात जी को आमंत्रित करती हूँ। श्रीमती जमीला निशात एक प्रकाशित नारीवादी कवि और नाटककार हैं। उनकी कविता संग्रहों में लावा, लम्हे की आंख, लम्स की सौगात और बटरफ्लाई कैरेसेस शामिल हैं। उन्होंने नुक्कड़ नाटक लिखने के अलावा दक्कन की महिला कवियों पर आधारित इनकेशाफ नामक संकलन का संपादन भी किया है। Jameela ji's work has been widely translated. One of the feminist poets at 100,000 Poets for Change conference held in Salerno, Italy. She's also the founder of Shaheen's Women's Resource and Welfare Association. She has been awarded the Devi Award, Adhikara Bhasha Sangam for promoting Dakkani, and Ladli Award for Best Radio Play, amongst other awards. Srimati Jameela Nishat.
Hello.
अ, मैं कुछ नज़में जो बहुत पुरानी हैं पढ़ूंगी आपके लिए। एक नज़्म है जो मैंने कुछ अपनी सहेली के लिए लिखा था। तेरे कमरे की खिड़की में कल जो उल्लू आया था, तेरे कमरे की खिड़की में कल जो उल्लू आया था, वो शायद मेरी रूह का हल्का सा साया था, वो शायद मेरी रूह का हल्का सा साया था। ख्वाबों के दरीचों से तेरी आवाज आती है, धड़कते दिल को मेरे एक लोरी सुनाती है। मेरे अल्लाह ने भी सर को पल्लू से ढांक रखा है, मेरे अल्लाह ने भी सर को पल्लू से ढांक रखा है। ये कैसी आवाज है जिस पर मेरा मन नाच उठता है। ऐ बेवफा, तूने नहीं जाना कि दिल क्यों गुदगुदाता है। दिलों को तोड़ना आसान है पर जोड़ना मुश्किल, दिलों को तोड़ना आसान है पर जोड़ना मुश्किल। मेरी रूह का साया तुझसे लिपटता है और कहता है, तेरे कमरे की खिड़की में कल जो उल्लू आया था, वो शायद मेरी रूह का हल्का सा साया था। एक और नज़्म है। अभी वो जो रंग था मेरे हाथ का, वो हिना नहीं मेरा खून था। वो जो रंग था मेरे हाथ का, वो हिना नहीं मेरा खून था। मेरी धड़कनों की एक चीख ने किया खाक सारा जहान फिर। तू खफा हुई, मैं हवा बनी, तू खफा हुई, मैं हवा बनी और चल पड़ी तेरी राह पर। मुझे क्या पता मैं किधर गई। वो जो ओस थी मेरी घास पर, वो जो ओस थी मेरी घास पर, तेरी रोशनी से चमक उठी। जब पौ फटी तो धनक बनी और रात को वो शहद बनी। ये तो ख्वाब था मेरी आंख का, यह शराब था तेरी चाह का। मैं तो सोच सोच के रह गई, न इधर गई न उधर गई। जिसे ढूंढती है मेरी नजर, मुझे क्या पता वो किधर गई। चलो तोड़ दें सभी भरम, चलो तोड़ दें सभी भरम। चलो हम बनाए नया जहां और ढूंढ लें नए रास्ते। नया ख्वाब हो, नया ख्वाब हो, नया प्यार हो, नई भावना, नया साज हो। सभी हूर हों और रानियां, सभी हूर हों और रानियां, नए इश्क की हो कहानियां। वो जो रंग था मेरे हाथ का, वो हिना नहीं मेरा खून था। एक और नज्म बहुत छोटी सी है। मेरी सांसों से लबालब था समात का तेरे प्याला, मेरी सांसों से लबालब था समात का तेरे प्याला। मगर वो लोल की घुलने लगी थी मेरी होठों में, मगर वो लोल की घुलने लगी थी मेरे होठों में। एक और नज्म सुनाऊंगी। पेड़ के नीचे बैठ के सोचा, पेड़ के नीचे बैठ के सोचा, मैं भी गौतम बुद्ध होती। तन्हा तन्हा सूरज ढलता, तन्हा तन्हा शब होती। मन भी चुप और तन भी चुप, मन भी चुप और तन भी चुप। तन्हाई के दश्त में बैठे मैं चुप का सौदा करती। लम्स की किरणें झिलमिल झिलमिल, वादी वादी याद की साए बादल जैसे मंडलाते। जिस्म की चीखें गूंजती फिरती, जंगल जंगल पर्वत पर्वत। आने वाला वक्त उफक से झांकता, आवाजें देता। आने वाला वक्त उफक से झांकता, आवाजें देता। मैं उन सब से आंख चुराए अपने सुहाने सपने में बैठी रहती। मैं भी गौतम बुद्ध होती, मैं भी गौतम बुद्ध।
आपका बहुत धन्यवाद. I now invite Mr. Joshua Muyiwa. Mr. Joshua Muyiwa is a poet performer, a former columnist with the Bangalore Mirror and First Post, and a freelance journalist who has written on art and culture, food, gender and sexuality for local, national, and international publications. He won the Toto Award for Creative Writing in English and was a recipient of the Gender Bender Grant 2019, besides other awards. He has also created Come Live With Me, a durational poetry performance in 2020. Mr. Joshua Muyiwa.
Thank you, Hoshang, for inviting me to this panel, and thanks to the Sahitya Academy as well. I'm going to read a set of poems from this series, from this work that I call All His Moving Parts. And just to give you a context of where the work comes from, so many years ago, I went for a friend's wedding, and the friend gave a huge speech about her partner at the wedding. And she said he had this beautiful mole at the back of his ear that she thought was the most beautiful thing about him. And then after the wedding was over and only the friends were gathered later, her husband revealed that he doesn't have this mole. And it seemed like she was remembering it from some past lover. And so it reminded me of how queer people remember people's bodies in different ways. And so this set of poem is called All His Moving Parts, and it's all on body parts. And so this one's called Hands. Hands. When your heart has been broken, you should die. But quickly you learn to put back the pieces, though never in the same shape. Mine is a fist now. It used to be a beach ball, a fortress, a mango. And sometimes it is water. It takes the shape of your eye. It shimmers in your palm. Learning to put back the pieces takes two sets of hands, though. One that knows the pieces, the other set rediscovering them anew. Each jagged edge has left a scar. His hands must be calloused enough to play with them, soft enough to bleed to the cut. Sometimes you might be the new hands. Be kind, be gentle. You will expect the same. My hands have always betrayed me, either haphazardly plugging the gaps, not concerned with shape, or too stuck to create new ones. I was never very good at making things with my hands. My hands betray me, staying awake late into the night, giving each other company. I like your hands. They've got a certain knowledge, having tapped on various doors, pulled down underwear, undone knots in the pits of numerous stomachs, struggled with replicating an essence of the first time it was true. Hands that have told lies to other hands. Hands that have wiped off the sauce and mayo from the sides of lips. Hands that have played substitute, replacement, disciplinarian, teacher, that have collapsed a night into wonderful for boys all over. Hands that have been distractedly nibbled. All these things you've done for me. Hands that have been intertwined with mine to claim intimacy, just to belong to the world of serendipitous romance, of you. You are nothing, nothing. You are nothing but surprise, surprise. Surprise is over plus to take over, to overtake. So go on, let your hands gain on my body. Friction aids shape making. This one's called Mouth. Imagine we could go back to the time when to truly know something, we had to put it in our mouths. Your mouth is late February. It is a cherry, sweet on first bite, and then only gets sweeter till drifting is inevitable. Your mouth is sometimes December, bitter winter, the kind of winter that East European men will declare mild while you are shivering. Your mouth is sometimes uninviting, unlike these men who are willing to taste everything once. My sweat, charms, lots of hash from Morocco, the hot chili sauce from Walk and Go, and beer in every form. Imagine we could go back. The warning that everything on Red Coat Isle is inedible and tasteless holds true for everything that is not exported or holidaying. Though I realize I had come back home on tasting my grandmother's ground chili chutney. The mouth is the library. I know my first lover. He tasted of synthol behind the ears, and like Axe body spray near his armpits and pubes. My grandmother's chutneys are always generous on chili. My grandfather's food on garlic. My best friend puts generous amounts of tomato in all his food. My flatmate likes lime. But all this you already know. Your mouth, on the other hand, isn't so excited by spice, not interested in the juicy, the overwhelming, the fleshy, the violent. So much these orifices register, so much your orifices register, so much my orifices register. Thank you. Please feel free to clap in between. Knees. Capped, conquering, and careful, your knee. Such concern, so crystalline, nothing tougher, nothing bolder. It can also bend. In bed, your knees have found my warmth, lingered, and pushed only to meet resistance, restraint, and refrain. Equal parts yielding to being desired, equal parts fearing the sweet, crushing death. You've always been so gentle with your tools, tougher, bolder at times, like a rabbit boring its way through the downs. Your knees have purpose. They've got principles and are quite the pervert. Your knees always betray your mind with a knock. Under the table of a dingy bar, they've been bumped into me to remind me that I'm here with you and no one else, not even myself. On sofas at dinner parties, they've egged me on to speed up my goodbyes. At nightclubs and over nightcaps, they're counting my cigarettes and chide me on my excesses. Digging into the small of my back in the middle of the night, they prompt me to dissolve into you. You know, one of my lovers would always invite me to things with the question, would you like to join? I love this awkward phrasing. It glows with possibility. It made me feel like on encountering each other, we'd immediately lose all boundaries and merge into the other. He always disappointed. Your knees remind me that at night, turning into putty on your knob ensures in the morning we'll be pliable, plastic, and pleased. But I love that you sleep like an overturned boat on your belly. This love is hued with wickedness. Let me be honest, not always the best is over your upturned butt. It's simply divine, decadent, and delectable, your butt. Even in the coldest of winter nights, I'm reminded of summer, of foliage, of fruit. In my mind, my hands are ceaselessly grabbing and grasping and gathering the whole of you, though even hovering over it makes me go crazy. The barest whisper on your back bellows into rushes of hair, heaving, harboring my treat, though the whole tray is dessert. I can pick out your butt in a police lineup. So plump, it bounces back, fighting each bite. It prefers nibbles, and I must comply. So inch by inch, I'm forced to explore. I want to capture, conquer swaths of this land, mine it for oh. Your butt is a lesson in control. It will deflect a 5 rupee coin with the grace of Virat Kohli's cover drive. I love your butt. It's the Maximus in my books. The working over of your butt needs a studied tongue, motivated by the perfect cocktail of curiosity, cruelty, and caution. One that flicks, flits, and flirts with restriction. Though I've been militant on occasion. I can't spot a blue water tanker without thinking of your bubble butt. Being the big spoon is only compensated by the fact that your butt spends all night coaxing out room between my thighs. Sometimes I've got to grapple with you to be the big spoon. There, another honest bit. Even with one lifetime, I'll never have enough of it. How can one night suffice? Be comforted in this. On the day that our world ends and the apocalypse is here and all is rendered into dust, I will eat you, starting with your butt. Okay. Last one is the epilogue of the series. Each morning, waking up without you is the time I spend recollecting myself. I spend recollecting you, adding clay to your absent body, whistling life into your hollow bones, and excavating memories from your supple skin. These must be ordered, ordained, and then made ordinary. Being with you, I am shattered, shaped, and shattered again. The hazard of falling in love on every night is that you'll hunger for the hurt. You'll be brazen with the bruises. You only want to take on those with the stomach for love, for play. Each morning, waking up with you is this time I spend mourning myself. I spend mourning you. There's so many leaks to be plugged, so many spills to be cleaned up. But I want to beat my chest and wail loudly. I've lost you and nobody cares but me. I've lost you and even you don't care, I see. Through all the sniveling, sniffing, the sighing, your departure is digested. Each morning, waking up without you is the time I spend remembering myself. I spend remembering you. Showing love is an exercise in memory. It's bringing out the backlogs. It's never revealing the altar, the archives, the automation. I might never recall your name or your faces, but you will always be ever so important, and I will ever be so grateful. You've given me drinking dives, desires, and distance. The distance look far into the world, to know that the one that steals, sidles, and sweats into my mattress in the middle of May and never wants to leave, he will be more than the sum of all his moving parts. Thank you.
Thank you. I now invite Mr. M.N. Parasuraman. श्री M.N. परशुरामन LGBTQ समुदाय के सदस्य और कार्यकर्ता हैं और क्वेयर लिटरेचर के अलावा वंचित समूहों के लिए शिक्षा शास्त्र में भी रुचि रखते हैं। उन्होंने 2017 में केरल विश्वविद्यालय में थियोराइजिंग सेक्सुअलिटीज पाठ्यक्रम शुरू किया है और उसमें महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभाई है और वो एक सर्टिफाइड सॉफ्ट स्किल्स ट्रेनर है। Currently, he is assistant professor, head of Department of English, and vice principal at the Government Arts and Science College in Kerala under the University of Calicut. Mr. M.N. Parasuraman.
I wish to begin by thanking the Sahitya Akademi and my guru, Hoshang Merchant. This is a paper, actually. It is titled, What is Queer About Queer Poetry? At the end of his preface to Yarana, Gay Writing from India, Hoshang Merchant says, gay writing is a veritable feast. And he says, here is a sampling, enjoy. As a bisexual, that marked the beginning of my exploration of several things, not just queer literature and activism, but also other enmeshed truths about the working of various social systems in this country, and also my own place in them from time to time. Over the years, the feast has only grown with more and more courses being added to it. And although there have been a few bitter and barely palatable items in the banquet, on the whole, my enjoyment continues. I begin today with looking briefly at the insights of a few queer poets. I begin with Akhil Katyal, of whom I first heard in connection with the anthology he edited with Aditi Angiras, The World That Belongs to Us, an anthology of queer poetry from South Asia. This was in 2020. It was recommended to me by Mr. Chandramohan, a dear friend and a poet who features in it, who explicitly identifies as a Dalit poet rather than a poet with a label from one of the LGBTQA plus categories. And that self-identification, read with Katyal's immensely engaging and educative conversation with Aditi Rao, introduces the first element when we approach queer lives and studies. Katyal argues that queer for him is not about identification. It's not about gender identity or sexual orientation alone, but it is about a way of looking at things. It is not about the body alone, but about being at odds with social acceptance. It is about engaging with difference. It is about unlearning as much as learning. It is about reading texts, people, places, situations, and body languages with the eyes of a person who has been kept out of the so-called mainstream, but for that very reason has developed a high sensitivity to the workings of that mainstream. Katyal had a sense of this broad and complex idea of queerness early on in his student days. But actually, he narrates that when he was seeking entries for the anthology, he had listed as many as 18 categories. And they had put it on Facebook, but then they got a lot of messages from people from categories other than these 18 ones. You know, what about us? What about asexuals? What about, various other people, and he realized that there is a lot more to it. And the call for poems had to be revised more than once, and the collective life of the anthology was much bigger than anything that Katyal had imagined. Okay. And Katyal says that queerness is about presenting a counterpoint. We think in terms of universal and particular, and queerness is a counterpoint against that binary. Queerness tells you that there's so much variety. You can't think in terms of just two items at any point of time. And we are reminded of a note of caution. This is by Professor Muralidharan, one of the foremost, the eldest gay academics in Kerala. He doesn't like to identify as anything. He wouldn't even like being called a gay academic. And he says labels are dangerous because if we just keep accumulating labels, it becomes easy to classify us. And any power that can classify people neatly, put them into boxes, can surveil them. And surveillance is a dangerous and potentially violent thing. Okay. So I would also like to add that, this can never be complete or satisfactory. So I will read from, Katyal has written a poem. It's 12 variations of a Sobti line. There is a writer, a partition writer and poet, Krishna Sobti, and these are 12 possible translations of a line in one of Sobti's poems. Okay. So this poem is about that. These are variations from a Sobti line. And queer people, and Katyal also says queer people from privileged backgrounds should be wary of thinking that they are special, because there are privileged and underprivileged even among the queer. A fact that comes across hauntingly in a poem that Katyal has written for the late Ramchandra Siras of Aligarh Muslim University. So the truths purveyed by Katyal also form the basis of what is said by Dhiren Borisa. Dhiren Borisa is another prominent queer poet and academic also. Borisa writes about Rohit Vemula in Should I Mourn a Little Longer? And there is an imagery of light and shade which you find in the poetry of many queer poets. Borisa says, how those in spring's light arms. I repeat the line, how those in spring's light arms were auctioned off as autumn's claim. And Borisa, he repeatedly tells us that in India, love and desire is always apportioned along the lines of caste. You cannot escape the reality of caste in India. And so there is caste and there is queerness, and these are intersectional. And of course, he says, when you think of intersectional, it's not as if it's not like a club sandwich. There is Dalitness, queerness, this, that, etc., etc. But these things flow into each other. It's very difficult to separate these things from each other. So that's the point that Borisa makes. And he says queer spaces are not somewhere in Mars. They are in India, they are in various countries, but we are concerned with India. So, queerness in India is always enmeshed with other Indian realities. So again, queerness and solidarity on the basis of shared queerness could be a ticket to change. Okay. But this change can happen only if queer people move beyond the tendency to celebrate exceptions to the norms of exclusion and refrain from prioritizing such things as gay marriages. There is a wide section of the queer community that is not very enamored of the idea of gay marriage. because they say that this will just, normalize, the various problems with marriage, like caste endogamy and the violence which is inherent in the marriage structure. So a lot of queer people feel that why do we need to import all those things from the heterosexual world into our world? So that is a question that is placed by many people, Katyal, Ashley Tellis, to some extent, even Hoshan Merchant. They all say that we must create our own open-ended arrangements. We should not create a homonormativity like a heteronormativity which exists. Okay. Uh, so then, so how does Borisa keep his optimism alive? He says that, he is a teacher. He teaches a relatively homogeneous, privileged set of students, but he initiates conversations with them from outside their experience. They might be uncomfortable in the beginning, but gradually they learn to talk about things which were outside their imagination. There's an educationist who calls this the pedagogy of discomfort. And that is what Borisa practices. Okay. So this is about Borisa. And then I come to the next poet, Hoshang Merchant. Hoshang was my teacher and my friend, and he is probably the most prolific writer among queer writers working in India. He has published multiple volumes of poetry, both before and after his Yarana. There are multiple threads that cut through his work: travel and places, other writers and artists, mythologies, politics, gay life on the streets of Hyderabad and Mumbai, family, autobiographical elements, fictionalized and non-fictionalized. He has written about a whole range of things. And there is a certain honesty and forthrightness in the poetry. Like when he says, there is one poem, Marks on His Body. And he says that, he ends, fascism is not exclusively for heterosexuals. People tend to romanticize queer life, but then there is a lot of violence, as Borisa had said, queer life is not somewhere in Mars. So Hoshang makes the same point, there is fascism. There are a lot of things in queer life which tend to mimic the life of other people. And there is even a story in Yarana, Never Take Candy from a Stranger. And, the reason that is given for including that story is, like all peoples, the homosexuals have their share of scoundrels and child molesters. Okay. So there is a certain honesty and boldness in queer writing. There is a lot of celebration and optimism, but there is also an honesty about uncomfortable truths, uncomfortable practices from which we have taken from the heteronormative world. So Hoshang also embodies some of the paradoxes about the queer project in India. He talks about having been humbled with defining the historical moment for India's homosexuals. But at the same time, he says he agrees with Octavio Paz. Octavio Paz, the Chilean poet, he had said that, gay liberation, women's liberation, these things are about politics. But then literature is about human liberation, and that is beyond politics. And that is a thread that runs through the writing of many queer writers, that, identity politics has its place. Queer identity politics, queer literature has its place. But at the same time, it is part of the journey. It should not be the destination. The destination is something beyond, when we can bring everybody on the table. And this is a recurring concern in the writings of many queer people. We now look at another queer academic and poet, Vikqueeram Aditya Sahai, another noted queer poet and academic. Vikqueeram reminisces about his childhood and growing up years under the care of two strong women, their mother and their grandmother, who taught them foundational lessons in non-individuated living and community-based happiness. Vikqueeram is emphatic about the fact that one's gender is not something that one defines by oneself. Vikqueeram is also categorical about the inherently violent nature of structures such as marriage, monogamy, etc. So we must not lose sight of the fact that many of these structures which oppress queer people, they take their strength from coercion, but in a certain sense, you know, queer people also take pleasure in owning these categories and structures. And that is something that we must not lose sight of. So I'll look at some lines from Vikwiram's poetry. There's one called Pleated on the Other Side. It says, desires suffer too many binaries. Respectable, queer, pride, shame, family, politic, AKA, that is also known as taming insecurity. Okay. So in the end, you know, one big takeaway from the work of queer writers is that beyond labels, beyond neat slots and binaries, and beyond, you know, very facile arguments, you know, for and against statements in all matters, there is a search to find each other. You know, whether we are within or outside the so-called mainstream, we search in order to discover solidarity, we search in order to build alliances, and we celebrate the category-defying diversity of human experience. And human experience is fluid, it's not something static. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. In the end, I request the chair, Mr. Hoshang Merchant, to kindly make his closing remarks.
Okay, we have been running over time. Thank you very much. To speak. Thanks for coming and enjoy the festival. Good night. Bye-bye.
On behalf of Sahitya Academy, I'd like to thank the Honorable Chair and the esteemed panelists for being with us. And I'd like to thank you all. आप सबको धन्यवाद कि आप सबने आप यहाँ उपस्थित रहे. कल सुबह 10 बजे के सत्र में आपसे फिर मुलाकात होगी. नमस्कार.
मित्रों, इसी सभागार में साहित्य अकादमी का संवत्सर लेक्चर श्री उपमन्यु चटर्जी के द्वारा दिया जाएगा 6:30 बजे. आप सबसे अनुरोध है कि इस बीच जो दूसरे सभागारों में कार्यक्रम चल रहा है उसका आनंद लें और 6:30 बजे के पहले इस सभागार में आ जाएं उपमन्यु चटर्जी जी का भाषण सुनने के लिए.